Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of CW Movie Night. I'm joined by Dean the Dream. How you doing tonight, Dean?
I'm doing
And
pretty
Mike.
good.
And how you doing,
What's up,
Mike?
guys? I'm good. You?
I'm good. For those of you who missed it, we had the triumphant reappearance of Classy Thomas 2 After Dark episodes back, and that was some touching stuff, man. I don't know. We're basically it seems like he's blessed to still be with us because he got rocked hard, man. So
Yeah.
thoughts and
Yeah.
prayers with Classy Thomas, and hopefully someday he's feeling he's got the vocal cords warmed up enough to come on back. But it looks like he's on the right track at least, so that's good to see. But yeah, I didn't have a whole lot of time, just some personal stuff going on to throw together tonight's episode. So I asked the guys. I gave them a list of some bullshit movies that I wanted to talk about that are just good Criterion Collection type fun. And they were not impressed by most of that list, but one sort of stood out as something that was near and dear to all of our hearts, and that was Terminator 3: Rise of the Machines, or as I like to call it, Terminator 3: colon, can we get a little more of that Terminator 2, please? That's basically what it is.
Yeah.
And what do you do? How do you reinvent? This is before the Terminator franchise really got weird. So at this point in time in 2003, the formula really just was, let's make Terminator 2 again, which Terminator 2 is like a spin on Terminator 1, but it's very structurally similar. So there wasn't the notion that you'd do anything too crazy with it. I sort of look at this movie as like they were still putting the number 3 on titles back then, and they still cared about the continuity just a little bit. And the first 4 Terminator movies, that's pretty much where I draw the line. And it was just an interesting time, 2003. Do you guys have any initial memories of seeing this in theaters or anything that stands out to you?
Yeah, it was a huge deal. When it came out, I'm trying to remember when 2003, this was even before the Sarah Connor show.
Yeah, I think
I
that's
think,
Yes.
2009 or
yeah,
8.
2008, 2009. So
Yep.
there was really no Terminator content other than the first 2 movies. So people were really like thirsty for more Terminator stuff. I remember my dad was so excited because like T2 growing up was like
Yeah.
the movie, right? Like it's so like classic and timeless and good that when, in fact, I think we'll talk about it a little bit later, but Arnold wasn't even a politician yet when
Right.
this was about to drop. So it was like, holy shit, like a return to Terminator. This is crazy.
Yeah, I remember being crazy stoked when this came out, man. Like Teen said, it was a decade of no Terminator, and I think we talked about it on something previous, but yeah, Terminator 2 just rocked my world, man. It was like an awakening when I saw that thing, right? So I couldn't have been more excited for this, and this was really before ever really acknowledging being let down by movies too, right? So it's like it can't be bad, right? I mean, as long as Arnold's
That's
back,
true.
yeah, right. It's
Now
like,
that you
I mean, at
say
least from what
that.
I remember,
Yeah, that's
you know.
funny. I
So
like so for me this came out when I was I guess I would have been in like grade 9 or something. So I remember a local theater had this thing where they like sometime in the summer they opened up all night long, and you paid like $10 and you could go in, and they had like every theater had like something going back to back. And I remember I went in there and I watched this and Die Another Day, the arguably shittiest and also best James Bond movie, depending on your perspective, because it has Ice Palace, a space laser, North Korean guy who gets transmognified into a white guy. Like it has everything. You know what I mean? It's just crazy. But that time period is just like they're just these like bonkers like Hollywood movies that were just like it's like you didn't that James Bond movie is just a fun time. You didn't say, "Wow, has they really jumped the shark?" Like this was, you just took it for what it was, and it sort of still felt like they were trying, and we'll get into that a little bit. But
I feel like in both
obviously,
James Bond movies, they actually jumped a shark,
yeah, a
and then
few
the
times.
shark exploded.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, the shark literally had laser beams one time. That wasn't
There
just
you
an
go.
Austin Powers thing. Like that
Freaking
was
laser
actually,
beams.
yeah, that was actually in a James Bond. I'm pretty sure
There you
in
go.
the 70s. But yeah. So, but here the big elephant in the room with Terminator 3 is the absence of our Lord and Savior Jimmy C. James Cameron is not the director of this film, and that's one of those weird things where like he for the longest time he was preoccupied with, it seemed like for 10 years he worked on Alita Battle Angel and Avatar without anything coming out. And maybe he was going to direct that, maybe he wasn't, but this is directed by Jonathan Mostow, who maybe I'm ignorant, I don't know him from anything else, but he kept it together. He didn't get too crazy. He didn't, it holds together. It's good. But
Yeah,
Well,
this
good.
movie was very safe in terms of
yeah,
like the ideas.
Yeah, it was very
Where,
easy.
yeah, if you like compare it to
Genesis, where they just
Genesis,
reboot
yeah,
the
where it's
first
like,
movie.
bro, don't. What are you
It's
doing?
timeline split. Right? I
John
mean,
Connor's the bad guy. What are we
Yeah.
doing here? This is fucking nuts.
Yeah. And so, 2003 is a weird time. You got some tie-in games. I remember enjoying these on the original Xbox. I think there's two Terminator 3 games, Terminator 3 and then Terminator 3 Redemption, which it was almost like Mia Copa. We know that first game sucked. We're calling the second one Redemption.
wow, I don't
and
remember
it
that at all.
and it
I don't
was
remember the
better.
redemption.
But and then it went a little bit into the future war, and then just I got to acknowledge the amazing thumbnail that you guys all witnessed. I stole that from a local theater called Kingsway Movie Theater, and last year they were screening a 35 millimeter copy of this, and they were just advertising it like kings and putting these banners up saying, "Are you man enough for the Lady Terminator?" And I was like, that you might be able to get me to go watch that movie again. Kingsway Theater. So shout out to Kingsway Theater in Toronto. They are a very cool place if you want to see good movies from the last 40 years on 35 millimeter film. But
You sent these screenshots of this,
yeah,
and I remember when the movie was coming out, that was like a selling point. Was like, oh, it's a Lady Terminator now.
yeah. Because what do you do?
Yep. They had to do something
And
different.
yeah, and I remember it was more of like a, oh, that's badass kind of thing, whereas the most recent Terminator movie, which did the same thing, but it was not in the same. The energy was definitely different. You know
Well,
what I mean?
also let's also keep in mind that a few times in Terminator 2, the T-1000 presented himself as a woman because it really doesn't matter because
Oh,
it's
that's
Terminator
true.
at the
Yeah.
end of the day. When he kills John's stepdad, he is John's stepmom at the time, and there may be a couple other times, but but
Well, I didn't even think of that. You're totally right.
what's
But
interesting
it wasn't
here
a
is, like,
hot Terminator.
yeah, I could, yeah. Well, that's the real
That's
selling
down
true.
point.
to
She's
it.
pretty sexy
Yeah.
in this movie.
And this is Christina Loken, who I know from nothing else other than Blood Rain, which is a terrible video game adaptation. But it's entertaining, but it's not it's not of the high caliber of Terminator 3. So so like Dean was saying, this comes out on literally it's later that same year in October that Arnold becomes the governor of California, and we're in a whole new world. And Arnold manages to stay governor of California for 8 whole years. And it seems like a fantasy at this point, thinking back on that, because it's just like, did that really happen? Was Arnold really twice elected conservative governor of California? Yes, that actually happened. And what a
Is it
weird-
really that hard to believe? Considering?
No, well, just the conservative part, but it's all good. But it's just weird to think this like he does Terminator 3, and I think he self-funded some of Terminator 3. Like there's certain sequences, like when we get into it, the big crane sequence was that almost was cut from the movie if Arnold didn't like personally pay for it, basically. And he's just like, well, this movie's really not any fun if you lose that crane.
It's really not.
Yeah. So we'll get into it a little bit here. Basically the hot. Oh, go ahead, Dean.
Oh, I was gonna say I'm gonna say hi to the chat really quick before.
Oh
we
yeah,
move
cool.
on. We got Toy Mafia. He's always here, number one. It's crazy. I don't know how he does it. Toy Mafia, you're a fucking gentleman and a scholar. Got Billy Badfish. What's up, buddy? He said he's messing with his Aragorn figure. His
Jealous.
just came in. I know, dude. That figure looks so good. Got 6 Scale Collector in here. Jason Nelson. And I think that's it for now. So thank you guys for tuning in and watching, hanging out with us. There's other people in the chat. I just don't know who they are. I see them.
Right. Well, we appreciate you guys, and if the thumbnail got you, mission accomplished. But yeah, so we'll get into the synopsis here. High level, Terminator 2 ended where they thought they stopped Judgment Day from happening because they shredded up Cyberdyne and defeated the T-1000, and then Arnold took a final bow into the molten lava pit, which every good industrial factory has.
Of course.
Yeah. And he gave the thumbs up as he went down and melted, which is almost as funny as a lot of the things that happen in this movie, if you think about it. But, in Terminator 3, what do? We stop Judgment Day. Maybe we just postponed it. That's the concept here. So John Connor is once again assaulted from the future by a Terminator. So John must face a female Terminatrix, which I forgot they were using that terminology in the marketing. The TX or the Terminatrix. Oh my God, how edgelord! But
dude, edgy as shit. Dude.
Yeah, and by the way, it's still good movies like this were still rated R back then. Now they're all PG-13. But so wild stuff happened. But yeah, the Terminatrix has the power over all machines. Oh yeah, I forgot. It's like that Stephen King movie where she just like hacks things and shoots cars at people and stuff.
I still don't understand how that works.
Yeah, I would have to have some chips and servos and all that stuff for it to work. It doesn't make any sense, but that's okay. But a new T-800 Terminator is sent back through time to guide John through the upcoming battle. And let's talk a little bit about the critical reception. And we got a clip from our good buddy John, the Everyday Collector.
Hey everyone, welcome back. It's that time of the show where I give you the IMDb rating and Rotten Tomato score for Terminator 3: Rise of the Machines, all the way from cold Canada, soon to be the 51st state, right? Let's kick it off with IMDb, 6.3 out of 10 with 424,000 ratings. Rotten Tomatoes, we'll kick it off with the tomato meter at 70% with 205 ratings. And the popcorn meter, 46% with 250,000 plus ratings. Not too shabby. Like Arnold would say, I'll be back. Till next time, guys, kicking it back to you in the studio.
Okay, so this is weird, right? This is like a high tomato meter and a low audience score. What is this? The Acolyte? That's strange, man.
Yeah, it's usually the other way around.
Right. I mean, this is thoroughly entertaining, at least. But it's just, it's interesting to think of critics. Oh man. Oh man. All right. So, but critics were okay with this movie. That's what I'm trying to say. So
that was surprising to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wonder. I wish I would have clipped this, but there was a recent podcast that Edward Furlong appeared on. I'm talking like in the last 2 months, there was a bombshell Terminator 3 behind the scenes story that came out. And basically Edward Furlong was supposed to be in this movie, right? And they're like, he was fresh off American History X. He was at the peak of his career. He started getting into the booze and the drugs a little too much. And they wanted to keep the continuity and they wanted to hire him, and he was tapped for it, and the producer was talking to him, and it was going to be the biggest payday of his life. And basically what happened was they signed him up, but they're like, listen, your personal trainer for the next 6 months starts on Monday, and you better get your act together, and you slip up once, you're out of here. And wouldn't you know it, once the deal was signed, Eddie and his boys thought, we better just have one last night to celebrate.
Oh,
and
no.
and he wrecked himself epically. And I forget how the studio found out about it, but there might have been legal implications. I forget the details, but basically one night of partying lost him the gig.
Wow.
So and we, in a different timeline, maybe we would have had Edward Furlong in this movie, still looking sort of normal, and he really sort of had a rough time after this, but most people are not so lucky to have a single Terminator 2 in their resume, so you take what you can get. But
Yeah.
interesting alternate universe where they kept that continuity.
I mean, I don't know if this movie would have improved with him in it.
No.
I
Probably
don't
not,
think
but they were just worried about recasting it maybe. And he was, if you watch American History X a couple years before this, he's still pretty good. You know what I mean? Like, he hadn't really like totally lost it yet as far as acting ability and all that.
I don't know that the movie would have been much better, but it would have probably felt better, right? Felt more right,
for sure.
you know. But there's
because now there's more John Connors than fucking any other character out there.
Yeah,
But
that is.
yeah, I feel like you're right. Like, I'd rather have one Terminator 2 than
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
a couple Terminator movies.
And well, let's not forget his great appearance in T2 3D, The Ride from 1995. But
Bro, I just saw that on YouTube. It like got recommended to me. I was like, what the hell is this? This is incredible.
really, you never had the pleasure of seeing it in the Universal Studios park?
Nope.
No.
Wow. That's James Cameron first messing around with 3D cameras. That was like 3D glasses that didn't have the red and blue in like 1995. Like, it was color 3D in 95 if you went to the park. Unheard of,
Wow.
like I said, our Lord and Savior Jimmy C, right at the bleeding edge of technology, even in the 90s. But yeah, man, Terminator 3, it starts out just like Terminator 2, where you get a vision of some T-800s stomping around in the future war, but this time they're CGI because it's 2003. But I think it looks pretty good. They look a little beefier than the original ones. And that's not to say there's no practical effects in this movie, but I love the future war sequences in all the Terminator movies. Even the first movie, it's pretty gnarly stuff with the hunter killer droids, and the humans have these like basically warthogs from Halo that shoot purple lasers. It's a good time.
Yeah. Dude, the T-800s are so fucking cool, dude.
Yeah, especially when you realize the design comes from like James Cameron like woke up from a nightmare and then sketched it out because he saw it coming out of the flames in his nightmare, and that's
right.
where the design
I remember reading
comes
that.
from. Yeah.
Bro, I need to have better nightmares. Damn.
I need to write them down.
So we got to look at our new John Connor in the future war, Nick Stahl here, and it's interesting. Like you were talking about all the different John Connors we get. I always thought Christian Bale kind of looks like the guy from the future war sequence in Terminator 2 who plays John Connor. Like, if you rewatch Terminator 2, like you get a close up on John like at the beginning, and like that guy Christian Bale does kind of match up. This guy not at all. This is like blonde John Connor for some reason. It's like when Daniel Craig got cast as James Bond. We accept it in retrospect, but at the time it was kind of strange.
Yeah, I think this is, because when you watch the first movie or then the second movie, even though you see John Connor as a kid in the second movie, John Connor's almost a myth. That's what makes him like so badass. Is like you don't really see him. You just hear about how he's such a formidable opponent that the Terminators are like, fuck it. Let's kill him when he's a kid.
Yeah.
Let's go
That's the
back
Hail
in
Mary,
time.
right?
Because it's easier than dealing with him now.
The
Well,
only way they can stop them is to prevent it.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, even in the first movie, Kyle Reese says they did this because they lost. Like they knew they were toast. Like
Yeah.
the
Yep.
war was over basically. It was the
And
last ditch attempt.
yeah, and then you watch this movie is kind of when they started leaning a lot into like showing John Connor in the future wars, where it just took away that like mysticism, I guess, of the character, which I think is a disservice.
I would argue that Christian Bale kind of lives up to the legend in Terminator Salvation. Like,
Bro, that
yeah,
movie
yeah,
That's
actually, I think if they had, well, we'll talk about that later.
yeah, maybe.
I don't want to go on a huge tangent.
This is just going to be the Terminator discussion because Terminator 3 is, if nothing but a canvas of member berries to talk about the other movies. But anyways,
I like Sam's comment in the chat. You know, the American flag, like Skynet gives a shit about the borders.
Yeah.
well,
Skynet's also kind of like, just kind of your fault. This is it's the military industrial complex, like running
Yeah,
amok,
they're just-
dude.
yeah, you guys are lucky you didn't get put in purple jelly pods and used as batteries like in the Matrix. You know, we're just gonna hunt you down. But yeah, so you know but then we cut to the real time 2003, and John Connor is a guy who never pursued post-secondary education, and he's the lowest rung at a construction site. Basically, he's not the foreman. He's just like he's the guy everybody thinks is lazy at the construction site.
You got to stay off the radar.
Yeah,
Don't draw any
sure.
attention to yourself.
Yeah, it's because of that. Yeah, you know, when I was looking for screenshots for this, I couldn't get them in order. So it's actually, I'm pretty sure he drops a bottle or something here, and then that cuts to the future war where it does. It's a cool time transition there, but yeah, basically, it's sort of it's interesting because it's like if they succeeded in stopping Judgment Day, then he just went from basically Jesus Christ's second coming to being like totally a nobody for the rest of his life, pretty much. Like that's sort of the trade-off, right? It's like, well, you know, in the long run, it was the right choice, but you'll never know if that future was actually ever going to happen because your mom might have just been off her rocker, or like they sort of bring that in a little bit in this, but
Is
yeah,
that why he's living off the grid?
his mom told him to.
Okay, because that's, and I'll go into this a little bit later, which is my biggest problem with this movie. But at the end of the Terminator 2, for all intents and purposes, they won. They beat Skynet. They stopped, you know, the apocalypse. So it's like, why wouldn't you?
Well, that's kind of one of the more realistic things about this movie, if you ask me, because you know, in what universe? And by the way, a little known fact about people, a lot of people miss this, but you know, Terminator 2 came out in 91, I think, but it actually takes place in like 95 or 96. Weird detail they don't talk about that much in the movie, but just to explain John Connor's age, I guess, is the reason for that, and to push it closer to Judgment Day. But you know, in the 90s, if a tech company was having breakthroughs on microchips, like somebody else is going to pick up the work. Like unless there's an apocalypse, tech companies are going to push the boundaries, and maybe it would take another 100 years. In this case, it ended up taking another 10 years. You know what I mean? Like eventually there's going to be general artificial intelligence. So it kind of makes sense to me. And it's not Cyberdyne, I don't think in this movie that resurfaces.
Correct.
It's just the military industrial complex, basically.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think part of it, right? I mean, wouldn't they have still been on the run for everything that happened, right? I mean, they were chasing, the cops were after him. She broke out of the psych ward, so
Oh, I guess that's true.
yeah, they still needed to stay off the grid, even if it wasn't for Judgment Day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I was gonna say, I think it just to have John Connor in this situation just seemed like an excuse to get the story going. But I guess that actually makes more sense, Mike.
Yeah, but Dean, to your point, there's a lot in this movie that is one of those just happy accidents, happy coincidence. Oh, look who's here moments, right? So you're not far off with that either.
Yeah, on that topic, we have the glorious return of Arnold in his last naked appearance in the middle of nowhere as the Terminator. I think after that, he mostly keeps a shirt on in the sequels, unless he's CGI. So Arnold just gave it his all. I think he's about 50 when this came out. I'm not positive, something like that. So
that's probably right.
Yeah, he was trying. And you have this glorious riff on the Terminator 2 biker bar where this time he goes. I think it's a gay bar, and he's scanning in there, and the guy on stage.
I think it's just like a male review, right? Because it's all
women
in the audience.
Okay, yeah, something like that. You got it. You're paying more attention.
Not that I would know.
But I always remembered this guy's very effeminate accent when he tells Arnold to talk to the hand. And then Arnold grabs his hand and demands
when he
his
scans
clothes.
him. I remember the wrong shit in this movie. When he scans him, this guy's wearing a thong.
You can they outline the thong.
Yep.
Yeah, like there's some good. It's just like, I mean, there's just stuff you'll never get again in a movie. In this movie, I don't know. And then and this is like Arnold. He goes like, it's in T2 it's playing Bad to the Bone. He comes out and puts on the Elton John sunglasses in this. It's just like, come on, man.
So this right here sums up probably my biggest issue with this film is there's so many attempts at forced humor that it's just cringeworthy, right? Like all the same beats in T2 seem to work. It seemed to like they were building, to his humanity and learning and stuff. Everything they try in this one is just cringy.
Yeah, it's like, hey, remember how cool it was in Terminator 2? Look how stupid it is now.
That's exactly it.
Yeah,
exactly. Like he says something later. He like tells him like somebody like talk to the hand or whatever.
Yeah,
and
that's
doesn't
when he
make any sense because nobody would have taught him those things.
No,
right?
but
This
he's
isn't
but he
the
said
same Terminator.
No, but he's just repeating stuff, right? He's just repeating stuff that he heard earlier. It happens a bunch in the other movie. But all right, you guys don't like the glasses. That got me every time. All right, so here's John Connor steals medicine from a veterinary supply place because you can't get a prescription when your buddy unloaded a minigun on 50 cops. You're always on the run for the rest of your life after that. Even if none of them were shot, they're not letting you go. So he has to get
your HMO is not going to cover that.
Yeah. So he's got to get his morphine and stuff from a veterinary place, which and then we were introduced to Claire Danes, who, what's her character's name? She's in the Christian Bale one too, played by a different actress. Let's see here.
Shit, I just had it too.
Kate Brewster. All right, so
Kate, yeah.
Given a little bit of backstory, like maybe John and Kate knew each other as kids, and he's this sketchy dude who just dropped off the map and never got his life together. And she probably she hadn't thought about him in a while, and they had a brief acquaintance with each other as kids.
bro.
Yeah.
She's such a babe in this movie. That was one of the selling points for me. I was like, yeah, I'll watch Terminator 3.
Well, there's a lot going on, and so then we have the appearance of our Terminatrix, who I think she steals like an alligator leather jumpsuit from a from a window, and she's just causing chaos. Like a lady she shows up naked. A lady wants to help her because she's like, oh my god, what happened to you? Just murdering people left and right, cold-blooded, and
which is very weird because like in Terminator 2, the T-1000 really only kills people if he has to. He doesn't just kill indiscriminately because it would bring a lot of negative attention towards you.
Well, there's a little subplot here that the T-1000 she's got a little more of an agenda than the T-1000 did. I don't know if you remember, but she's also hunting down his like first officers basically, like from the future. So like she has a bigger list of targets than the T-1000 did, and we do get a couple scenes of
Oh,
her
that's right.
Yeah.
You
hunting
are
down a
correct.
guy. Yeah, like some guy who working at a McDonald's is like one of the generals in the future or something. And
She
you know, you
walks
got
into that house and kills the kids too.
yeah.
Right? They were probably like
Damn.
13, 14 or whatever. Yeah. But I
What a
can't remember if it was
bitch.
because they couldn't find John's location, right? It's because he was off the grid, or was it because they just couldn't kill him, right? But as I'm thinking about it, that was probably more to the point why he was off the grid too. Is they sent her to kill the lieutenants because they couldn't find where he was,
Yeah. And if you think about it, you know,
which makes
they
sense.
they could send a Terminator back to kill him every week. You know what I mean? Like, what's the limit? You know,
Yeah, why
what
didn't
point
they
of the
send?
Yeah.
Why didn't they send the Terminatrix to back up the T-1000?
Well, you know, in Dark Fate, they sent one week that actually worked, but you know, we don't talk about Dark Fate over here, but but yeah, so you know, you get a little bit of backstory. Kate has an annoying fiance, and we don't mind later when he dies, basically.
She didn't either, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know if she could have cared less.
No.
yeah. I mean, I don't think I have
She
a
was so
screenshot of it.
relieved.
But you know, the Terminatrix rams her arm through his chest from the backseat of a car, and then starts driving with the steering wheel like through his chest. It's pretty great, but it's so unnecessary, but pretty great. But yeah, and then you have yeah, these slides are all out of order. She's got her look put together. Arnold's telling
And
people to
she
talk
was,
to the hand.
this is the last time I'll say it, but she was so hot, and they immediately put her in that stupid bun. Like, right? How good did she look with her hair all down over her face?
No, I don't know.
They
I kind of
immediately
like
no,
this
no,
look, too.
you
Yeah.
gotta take me serious.
Yeah. Well, you got to take her serious until she gets pulled over by the cops, and you have an amusing scene that you'd
Right.
never get in the current year, where she sees a billboard and she's like, "Huh, these guys seem to like certain things. Let's modify my attributes to get off with a warning from this police officer." And I was desperately looking for a screenshot of the police officer where he's basically just like letting the heat out of his collar when he sees this. It's just straight comedy. It's like it's you know, it's just like they just, you know, they don't. This was 2003, right? Like this, a screenwriter would be scared to turn in a draft with this scene in the current year. That's all I'm saying. They wouldn't even do it. They'd be afraid of being blacklisted or something. It's too funny. But she's like really hamming it up too. She seems to acquire sexual gratification from murdering children and then tasting their blood. And then, you know, she basically, it shows that she kills this kid. And then I think this is the house you were talking about, Mike. And she kills this kid and then tastes his blood to confirm his DNA identity, that he's like one of these soldiers that works with John in the future, something like that. But, you know, she seems to really enjoy the process of DNA sequencing.
Actually, I think this is when she finds John's blood on the
Okay.
ground.
Oh, yeah, this is
when
the
she first
the clinic.
realizes that she's found John Connor.
Yeah. And I mean, but you know, this is them sort of making good on the promise of the lady Terminator, you know, like, you know, this is doing what it said on the tin.
And I'm here for it, so it
Yeah,
worked.
there you go. There you go. And I don't know what's happening here. So the veterinary clinic's exploding. I forget the order of this is all jumbled up here. Yeah.
That was when Arnold showed up.
Okay, so-
she was
you're
about
right.
to kill Kate,
Yeah.
and he shows up in the truck and runs her over.
Yeah, and then, you know, you do have this whole thing where John sort of has to rediscover that Arnold's like a good dude. Like first he thinks it's another Terminator to kill him, and then he realizes he's good. But then there's this scene that always bothered me where John's like, "Don't you remember any of the stuff that I taught you?" I'm like, "My guy, you're supposed to be the future leader, and you don't realize
you
that."
remember?
You don't realize that you put that guy in the molten lava pit. That's not the same Terminator, brother. Even if it is the same Terminator, it's predating all that stuff that you told him the other time. So, you know, it's just like John shows makes an 80 IQ comment because the producer thinks the audience has 80 IQ and needs to understand that it's not the same Terminator from Terminator 2.
It's a lot to process in the heat of the moment.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I don't know. There's a guy got a crane shot in here. That's later in the movie where Arnold jacks a big crane.
I remember that scene was a big deal because it was like all practical.
Yeah,
And
doesn't it seem like a foreign planet being excited? There was hype around an action sequence ahead of the
it was like
movie's
news,
release.
Like, they like shut down like a whole section of the city, and they're like, we have this giant crane, and we're doing these crazy stunts. Yeah, I remember it was like news.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. And it's really the only real big action sequence of the movie, right? Everything else is very small in comparison. It's very contained.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I there's some great if you manage to find some of the bonus features for this, they're probably on YouTube. You can hear like they were sort of like evaluating what vehicle to use, and apparently this is the biggest mobile crane available. Like that's if you want it on wheels, that's the best option available, and Arnold was very excited about that at the time. But yeah, we get introduced to Kate Brewster's father, who we learn is I guess he's in the Air Force or something, and he's like integral to Skynet, which is like basically think of the Iron Dome, but AI operated, something like that. Basically, it's just like anything that somebody throws a rock over the border and it will shoot it out of the sky. Basically, that sort of concept. And
so it's basically just an anti-hacking software at this point, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so it is obviously it's military, but yeah, it's basically just to prevent or secure the military network. So it's
right.
rather simple. It's in its infant stage here at this point, but
yeah, that thing with general AI is it grows exponentially once you turn it on, and they do get to the point of feeling deciding whether or not it's necessary to throw the switch and awaken Skynet later in the movie, and they do so to their peril. Here's John saying like, "Why don't you remember all the stuff I taught you, Arnold?" I'm confused. Here's some 3D glass flying at your face. That effect actually looks very bad when you freeze frame it there.
Yeah, it does.
That's some 2003 CGI glass right there.
Wow.
That she just punched through an empty window, I guess. Good stuff. For a while in the movie, she has like a plasma launcher. That's so they sort of regressed in technology, like the Terminators, right? Like you think you couldn't really get any better than a full like nanobot liquid metal Terminator, but this one is like a T900 with a liquid metal overlay on it to change their appearance.
You're not completely wrong there, but remember in T2 he went out of his way to say that the Terminator couldn't form complex weapons or machines, right? So this it is kind of they upped the game as far as ammunition, right? But the fluidity, quite literally, of the design is a step down, but it's definitely more of an all-purpose killing machine than the first one.
Yeah. And I do like we had that character poster at the beginning where like when you see the sort of the skeleton underneath, like it almost looks like they're pushing it towards like it almost looks like otherworldly, like an alien or something. It's like the technology doesn't look as mechanical as it did. It's very of its 2003 time, but you can see that they're trying to show that it came from a later time period and it was more advanced.
Yeah, because there's really no reason that a computer would necessarily stick to a human design, because it's not a human.
Yeah.
The fact that it's like even like a bipedal thing is even kind of strange.
Yeah, the machines, I think what it really came down to was the machines just hate having to use the contemporary weapons of the period, you know? Like there's that scene in the first one where like Arnold goes into the gun store and he's like he asks him for like some sort of like laser pulse rifle.
Yeah,
He's like, this is the best I got, man.
yeah.
And, you know,
That's such a good scene. That's a
this
good
build
one.
for the Terminator kind of it just dawned on me, but it kind of I think lines up, Dean, with what you were saying earlier about the T-1000, right? So the T-1000 didn't go out of its way to kill if it didn't have to, right? It was more discreet, so it was more sleek. It just used knives. It was you know more ninja like, if you will. This thing's just an all-out killing machine that doesn't give a fuck what gets in its way. So it's gonna
Yeah, that's
shoot you,
true.
it's gonna blow you up, set you on fire, and it doesn't care who knows.
Yeah, and but you know, and we're getting like, listen, we're all out. Like I said, we're all out of order here. This is if you haven't seen this by now, there's something wrong with you. But you know what's great about this? What's great about this is that they get to do a few things, and we have once again we have the legendary Stan Winston doing visual effects on this movie, and 2003 was like the last like Stan Winston was around until 2008 or 9, I think, and he was working right up to the end. But in 2003, we got life-size animatronic Spinosaurus from Stan Winston, and one more crack at putting Arnold's face half melted off. And the tech had finally got there where they didn't have to build up Arnold's face, like they were able to put like green screen markers on his face, and actually the endoskeleton actually looked recessed and like inside his head for the first time, really, because they could actually give it that depth with the CGI, and you know, even in Terminator 2 they're putting a prosthetic over his face, so it doesn't look quite as believable in terms of the layers.
No, you're 100%. This is by far the best he's ever looked as a Terminator.
Yeah, even like I feel like in the later ones, this was just that they just got him at the right time. Like he still can sort of pull off the Terminator 2 look here at 50 years old, and it's not weird. We're not making excuses why the Terminator is 70 with weird plot holes and stuff like that, and like in the new movies. But yeah, you know, we're flying all over the place. I think she got her hand broke and it turned into a flamethrower at one point. That makes total sense.
Right. Where's she keep the fuel for that thing?
Wow.
Asking too many questions at this point.
Yeah, she siphons it out of the gas tanks of all the vehicles she steals. Yeah. Oh, this was fun. That was like I said, we're all over the place. Arnold gets his head fucking like whacked off totally backwards, and this is.
He gets it what now? He gets it totally what?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I meant to say. And you know, he put he has some really intimate fights with the Terminatrix in this movie. I think I maybe have like one screenshot of it there somewhere in here. I mean, there's just some iconic visuals in this movie. You know, like Arnold with his 2003 shades, aiming a rocket launcher out. Like,
this scene. What are they doing at the mausoleum again? I don't remember.
I believe John
went just for the guns.
His mother's grave is there.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah, and it's her coffin is filled to the brim.
Yeah. Where are we? We'll find
fucking guns and shit.
Yeah. Yep. So
yeah.
So I think
incredible.
But I think Arnold, the Terminator, knows about this, and John is like, man, I never knew where she was buried or something like that. And then Arnold shows what's up, and he's opening the coffin, and John's like, what are you doing? Why are you opening the coffin? He's like horrified, right? And then you see that it's a armory. But yeah, man, this they like John, like John's in the coffin, right? Like this is crazy. I don't know. I feel like there should be a 1/3 statue of this. This is like a beautiful sight.
John and Kate are in there, right?
Oh yeah, I
Even though
guess
when
that...
you look at it, but can you go back to where you could see the weapons in it? He only takes one gun out of there. You're not fitting two people in this coffin.
I don't think. Listen, not that matters, but I don't think Kate was in there. But I can't picture what they did with her. But I only remember John being in there when he opened it later.
Yeah, okay. You know what?
But
if you haven't figured it out, none of us rewatched this movie to have this discussion, and I think it was kind of a plus in this one case because like we're just we're reflecting back on
We're
the
all
chaos.
figuring it out together here.
Yeah, but I mean, but it's just like we're like this here it is, like for God's sake,
It's so awesome.
that's a
Incredible. Yeah.
Like,
This,
I
I
Go
had
ahead.
this action figure from Todd McFarlane,
Yeah.
right.
and the coffin opened and had all the guns and stuff in it. And yeah, I think this is easily my favorite scene from this whole movie. It's so
Yeah.
cool.
And I
Yeah.
mean, they obviously, obviously it's like a styrofoam coffin or whatever, but like just to even get the posture right, like while shooting,
Why obviously?
because,
Come on.
but here's the thing, right? Like you can't
You
have
saw
it
the
look
way he
too,
looked like in that first scene, right? If anybody could do it.
you can't have it look too light and like have it like bouncing around. So it's a fine balance there, and he jams it in the hearse here, and then we get our, I guess maybe Kate wasn't in there because we get our cameo appearance from Dr.
yeah.
Silverman from the first two movies. And I mean, he just gets a glimpse of Arnold, and then he just loses his mind and runs down the
Just
street.
runs away.
Yeah, because this guy
great.
first saw Arnold in 1984 when he shot up a police station and actually killed every single police officer inside of it in the first movie. And just like that's a wild scene. It's like Sarah's like in a interview room at the police station, and the Terminator just mows through it horribly. And I think Dr. Silverman here misses him by like a hair, like he's leaving the door at the same time or something like that. And then of course he sees him again in Terminator 2. But this is a little taste of casting continuity other than Arnold, as Linda Hamilton is obviously not in this movie, as her character at this point is dead, but that changes later on in the further sequels for some reason. All right. And we get into our use a little bit of our crane chase. We have a big several ton crane actually bashing into cars on the street, and it's not CGI. It's just a good time. And I don't know what's going on here. Arnold's looking crazy.
That's when she reprogrammed him.
Okay.
And he was going to kill John, and he had him like pinned up against a
Right.
car or something. And
Right. And John
that's the
turned
old-
him
Don't
back
you
with the power of
remember-
love.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Got it. Yeah, well, this is one of the things I really like about this movie is it gives you get to see like the iPhone 1 version of a few of the iconic Terminator
this was really cool.
beasts. Yeah, like this is like the early hunter killer, which is basically just, like this is the type of drones that, that are not that different than stuff you see on the battlefield today, like unmanned aerial vehicles shooting little Scud missiles at some guy in a shed in the middle of nowhere. It's pretty much how warfare is operated these days. And then I don't know if I have any shots of it, but there's also the T-100, which is like this like roving tank thing with like two miniguns on its arms, which looks like a smaller version of there's a massive tank that's in the future war sequences in the first two movies, and it's just like a shrunk down version of that. And basically, once Skynet gets activated, these sort of hunter killers and the T-100s are buzzing around all over the place, like shooting missiles at people. And you get some sweet scenes of Arnold.
This was all after he the general or whatever he was convinced by somebody even higher up that he had to unleash Skynet on whatever hacking was going on. And I never understood, and maybe you guys remember the hacking that was taking place initially that they felt they needed to start up Skynet for. Was that Skynet related somehow, or that's just another one of those happy accidents, like the Chinese or something were hacking into their systems? And I never really got if it was Skynet was trying to force their hand to releasing a full or updated version or something, or what that was. But he's essentially he's kind of like the the reluctant, general at that point in the movie. He
Yeah.
doesn't want to release it. He doesn't feel it's ready, but he's basically told by his boss, you do this, and I'll approve everything you ever want to do forever. So he does it, and he's responsible for unleashing Judgment Day.
Yeah. I'm sure it's in the movie and wasn't a complete oversight. I don't remember it being a foreign nation. It
I
was
don't think
either
they ever said.
yeah. Yeah, it was probably John Connor stealing from ATMs like he did in the first
Yeah,
movie.
right.
They just did that too many times, and then they just had to unleash Skynet
Uploaded a
because
virus.
yeah, he was listening to Guns N' Roses and just driving around stealing from ATMs. But
we've
yeah,
all
no,
been there.
here, exactly. Yeah, here's an interesting scene where the Terminatrix like flips her legs backwards on into while she's like comedically WWF wrestling with Arnold. And I mean, there's some good stuff here where I think she like smashes his head through a toilet, and you get that great ceramic toilet exploding sound, and he
Yeah.
just gets Arnold getting thrown through walls, and it's always
Yeah,
a
it's a
good
pretty
time.
decent fight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Kate's dad gets killed, probably shot by a Terminator. And I don't remember that. She's real sad about it. He basically flipped the switch and caused Judgment Day to occur. And
But
here's Arnold.
He then
Yeah.
told them where to go. He told them to go to that base, which later is just a
Right.
fallout shelter, and gives them the folder with all the codes and everything to get in.
Right.
Oh, yeah, he tricks them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think yeah, it's I think they sort of imply that the Terminator knew what that was too. And I mean, is this okay? So there's this this is earlier, right? Like, is this like a large hadron collider or something? Like, what is going on in this
Yeah,
building?
100%.
So it magnetizes. It's ripping off the liquid metal on they activate that while she's down there, and
Is that Ultron?
Yeah.
in 2003. Yeah.
No strings on me.
Yeah, but it's like, the atom collider's in the news. Let's have a battle down there. That's how it's done. But I think America was supposed to have a real big one of those during the Clinton presidency, but he couldn't convince the government that it was worthwhile doing because they were all like 70 and they're like, "What's an atom? That sounds expensive." So that's
I'm
why
sure they didn't do it. Wink, wink.
There's only one Adam, and it was Adam and Eve.
Yeah, so then this discovery of the Higgs boson happened somewhere else and not in America because Clinton couldn't get that through. But what can you do? But yeah, so John and Kate Brewster take off in a Cessna because that's all that's it doesn't have any chips in it, so Skynet can't hack their Cessna, and it's like the pickup truck. And they fly down to this hangar that Arnold and or the general told him about. I forget. And wouldn't you know it, Arnold and the TX show up at the last minute, even though they flew there. So I forget what's they're trying to get in the hangar door at the last minute.
Well, they flew in too because this thing made me laugh. She comes crashing in a helicopter.
Okay.
Right? And so they're panicking, and just after that, Arnold then comes crashing in a bigger helicopter right behind her. It was kind of like there's always a bigger fish moment. It was ridiculous.
Okay. Great. Yeah. No, that's good. And then you have Arnold saying some "Hasta la vista, baby" type tagline.
Terminated.
There it is. He's got the full eyeball exposed there. That's fun.
If I remember right, you could like see through his cheek, which doesn't make any sense.
Well, there's a little servo there. It looks like you can see through it right there. Actually, yeah, that's maybe the whole back of the head is gone too. But I guess
that's weird.
Yeah, they wouldn't want to. That angle would be disturbing. But they get in these coordinates, and it's a Cold War era bomb shelter that looks like it hasn't been opened up in ages, and they're walking around because they're slow, right? They're figuring it out.
So this was supposed to be where like the Skynet was, right? The main server, because he brought a bomb and he was going to blow it up,
right?
And they get there only to find out that it's really just a bomb shelter that for
right.
presidents and whatnot that they never made
Yeah.
it there.
Yeah, and it's actually, I think it was actually the Terminator that told them that it was like Skynet's like mainframe or something like that. Because he knew that would be the only way they would survive. And they get in there, and one of the greatest endings in cinematic history occurs.
Yeah, they lose.
Yeah. Yeah, where Skynet just starts firing nukes all over the damn place.
We won't see
You know,
an
I-
ending like this until fucking Infinity War.
I was gonna say, you always see those posts on Facebook or whatever, right? Like, name a movie where the villain wins. This one never comes to mind, but it's perfect.
Yeah, and it's sort of like I feel like but it's one of those things. Terminator 2 was called Judgment Day. If it didn't at least happen in 3, we're gonna stop giving them chances. You know what I mean? Like, it's about time Judgment Day happened in these Terminator sequels. So it sort of freed them up to. I'm so glad we like, because I remember even before this came out, that there was always sort of talk of like, wouldn't it be great to have a whole Terminator movie that took place in the future war? And like, we at least got one of those because Judgment Day finally happened.
Yeah.
And they didn't have purple lasers, which is the only thing I don't like about the the Christian Bale movie. They should have had purple lasers, not regular guns. But other than that, it was pretty sweet, and it was enabled by this this awesome ending where it's just like they're hanging out in the bomb shelter, and all these nukes go off. And then it shows John make radio contact with some other survivors at the very end. And that's sort of the start of the human resistance.
Yeah, it's a cool little moment, right? Because they're basically saying, like, who is this? And John Connor's like, who are you? Who's in charge? And then you kind of have that dramatic pause, and then he leans in and says, "I am."
And because all the
it's-
nukes went off, he can finally use his real name again.
Yeah,
Well-
right. Back on the
Yeah.
Who
good
is this? I'm John Connor. Aren't you that dude that's wanted for all those crimes?
Yeah, dick.
You're the leader now. Yeah.
Yeah, you're in charge.
Yeah. So yeah, that's Terminator 3, and I just wanted to do a couple behind the scenes spotlights here. You got the legendary Stan Winston showing how he wants the puppets to drive the Terminator 100. he's acted a Terminator 100 so that they do it like that on the next take, which is pretty
So
sweet.
awesome.
Yeah. And this is the guy for those of you, if you don't know Stan Winston, we probably bring him up every single movie night episode, but Jurassic Park life-size T-Rex, the Queen alien, the original Terminator endoskeleton, Terminator 2 endoskeleton, the Predator, the Pumpkinhead, every monster that you like.
Bro, I'm surprised he didn't do fucking RoboCop, dude.
Yeah, well, he had to save 2 or 3 jobs for the rest of the industry, I guess.
You're right.
But
It's a union thing.
yeah, and but you that's the thing you wonder, right? It's like, what I'm saying, like, you're lucky if you get one. It's like Edward Furlong, you're lucky if you get one Terminator 2 your whole life. It's like this guy did amazing thing after amazing thing, and he did a little bit of work on Terminator Salvation, and he died very shortly after that, but he was a little bit more hands off on that one, sort of managing a team. But
he kind of looks like the dad in Pirates of the Caribbean. What's her name's dad?
Oh, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah,
I know
maybe,
you're talking
but
about.
like it's you can't like once in a while the behind the scenes shot of like the animatronic T-Rex from the first Jurassic Park goes viral because people are just like, you mean to tell me they actually built that? And it's like lifting up cars and stuff, like, you know what I mean? Like, you can't imagine the extravagance. It will never happen again. It's just like when they do that stuff now, it's like dumbed down versions of it. Okay, it does kind of look like him.
Yeah, it does.
Almost exactly like this dude.
But yeah, he has one, I believe he has one Star Wars credit, which was only the only Star Wars Stan Winston worked on was the holiday special, believe it or not. But what can
Wow.
you do?
Wow, really?
Yeah.
All right, so he's
Yeah.
not perfect.
Yeah, I think he worked. He might. There was like a rat the size of a human sitting at a table in the cantina. He might have worked on that, but
Rats of unusual size? They
yeah.
don't exist.
Oh, good pull.
All right, and here you got to look at green screen Arnold here, and
That's crazy.
that's how they sort of peeled back, and you got a little bit underneath you could see the endoskeleton looking a little more realistic, and I think that's either a stunt double or a dummy beside him, probably a dummy. Yeah.
It's gotta be a dummy.
Yeah, because there's missing parts all over there.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Amazing.
All right, so yeah, go ahead, Dean.
Yeah, so this movie, it's a fun watch. Like, to say that it's not is, you know, I it's just not true. It's a decent watch. It's fun, especially if you compare it to the shit we've gotten since then. It's not the worst Terminator movie, but this is my biggest problem with this movie. I've said it before. 14 Wellington just touched on it in the
100%.
chat. But the end of Terminator 2, when they beat Skynet, John Connor says, you know, there's no fate but what we make. We were able to stop Judgment Day. And that's kind of like the message of the movie, right? Like nothing is set in stone. You can change your fate. And then this movie comes along and it's like, nah, you just postponed it. It's going to happen no matter what you do. And it's like, bro, you just shit on the entire message of the first movie, everything these characters went through. And that's why I don't like this movie. Not because it's not a fun movie to watch. It just like takes a shit on everything that came before it.
And there's Dean's score there. One, one or two men of culture out of 5.
Yeah, I would give it like as a pure like turn my brain off, watch this movie. It's a 3 or 4. It's
Yeah.
not the best movie. It's definitely not the worst. There's cool scenes in it. There's sexy ladies in it.
Yeah. Both are, in Hollywood, they're in short supply these days, man. Tell you what, you got. Yeah, I remember and being entertained by it as a youth, and
As a youth,
yeah,
sure.
But we didn't at the time. We didn't know that Jimmy C would never be coming back to the Terminator franchise, and it would just be worse sequel after worse sequel forever. Except with a small asterisk of the Sarah Connor Chronicles is pretty good.
Sarah Connor Chronicles
That
and
show's really good.
Yeah,
and Terminator Salvation.
Salvation.
yeah, which is PG-13 by the way, but still good, fascinating.
I think a huge disservice of that movie is they thought they were going to get a sequel, so I felt like they saved a lot of stuff for the next movie.
Yeah, like they didn't take it to Kyle Reese getting sent back in time, basically,
Right.
to like complete the loop. And then if we actually had Terminator 1, 2, 3, and 4, that it actually ended with Kyle getting sent back, and then Terminator 1 starts with that would have been amazing. But of course, the continuity got blown up shortly after that.
Yeah, it just turned into fucking muddy water, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, but but I think the whole idea of there's no fate but what we make for ourselves is kind of flawed anyways, because like has Kyle Reese always been John Connor's dad? That's the real question. Like, is he the first? Is he John Connor's dad when John Connor sends Kyle Reese back to save himself? Is he already his dad?
Yeah.
It's like
Right, that's one of the paradoxes, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
like when you have a paradox like that, it does kind of force your hand where it's like, well, it has to happen. The apocalypse has to happen. Otherwise, John Connor would never, rise to prominence and take on to send his own father back in time.
Right. Yeah, he
But,
would never
I mean,
exist, right?
Yeah, any decent sci-fi movie has tons of paradoxes. You're
Well,
never going to get around that.
Well, to give Jimmy C his due, the ending of Terminator 1 is Sarah Connor actually complaining about basically saying what you just said, Dean. She's like, if I don't tell you about Kyle, will you send him back or not? It'll drive you nuts thinking about this, because that's Jimmy C talking through
Yeah.
Sarah's character saying, I know it makes no sense, but what, didn't you have fun? Like, that's,
Right.
But
like if you look at it like in Endgame, the way the Hulk describes time travel, it's like your future. If you go back in time, the future is now your past, so it could still work, right? Like,
I feel like it only makes sense if you're making a new timeline every time you go back, and then it's like, what are you really saving? Because you're the self that you left, the future you left, the machine's still lost. So you're
which.
Yeah.
I don't know if you watch Dragon Ball Z, but that's exactly what happens with Trunks. Trunks comes back into the past to save the timeline, but his future is still fucked. So when he goes back home, he still has to live in this post-apocalyptic dystopian future. And, it's like, yeah, you save this timeline, but yours is still, so...
Where it's
time
so
travel's
easy.
wonky, dude.
Yeah. All right. Well, Mike, any final thoughts? Will you ever watch Terminator 3 again the rest of your life?
Wait, he didn't give his score.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't really think about my score. So I love Arnold. I love Terminator. So all these movies, even the worst of the worst, have a little bit of a soft spot for him. So I would probably land on maybe 3 out of 5. I'm taking one away for exactly what Dean just mentioned, that kind of whole, you just upset everything. And then back what I said at the beginning, there's so many forced attempts at comedy in this thing that it just drives me bonkers. So 3's probably a safe spot. I mean, if I was really being honest and sober about it, it probably wouldn't even be that high. But I'm good with 3. I can sleep well tonight giving it a 3.
Okay. That's good. I'm glad. I mean, I think it's sort of not fair to just call it like bootleg Terminator 2, in my opinion, because the world ends at the end of the movie, and that's, if you just wanted to keep repeating the formula, you wouldn't do that. They're like, we'll give ourselves one more repeat of the formula, and then we're gonna force ourselves to do something different if this keeps going. So I'm a little more warm about it, but not more than a 4 out of 5. But I really believe that everything sucks now, and you have to get any enjoyment out of anything, you have to go back at least this far, because this is the golden age. This is the real golden age. You got Lord of the Rings coming out, Star Wars prequels. Like, this was like the last time like a lot of stuff was interesting and good at the same time. it's this was 2003 was amazing time period, like 2001 to 5, even 99 to 2005, lots of amazing stuff going on.
So you give it bonus points for sucking before everything sucked.
Well, but we didn't know that Terminator would turn into a complete joke at this time, right? Like, yeah. But we're gonna cover. Go ahead, Dean.
Oh, I was gonna say, I think one of the good things about this movie is which was I was gonna say earlier about what do you call it? Salvation, and pretty much Genesis, and then the other movie,
Dark Fate.
So in Terminator, the first Terminator, it's Kyle Reese and Sarah Connor fighting the Terminator. And the second movie, it's Sarah Connor, John Connor, and the Terminator fighting the T-1000. In this movie, it's the Terminator, John Connor, and his, I guess, future wife,
Kate Brewster,
fighting the Terminatrix. Then you get into the other sequel movies, and it's like these sub characters that don't really fucking matter in the grand scheme of things. In Genesis, or God, there's so many fucking
Genesis is the
movies.
worst. Dark Fate is a little bit better than Genesis, if you ask me. Genesis, I blocked out of my brain completely.
Yeah, it's dog shit. But in the Christian Bale one, it focuses a
Salvation.
lot of the story on the half Terminator, half human guy. Why? Why the fuck are we wasting any story beats on this dude? It doesn't affect anything
Oh.
that came before it or after.
Well, the one thing I like about that is the one thing what's that guy's name? It's the Avatar guy. But
Yeah, yeah, he's a great
but
actor. I like the
yeah.
guy, but
But the in the beginning of Salvation, they at least they show him undergoing his cybernetic procedure in 2003. It's like, oh man, you're acknowledging Terminator 3's Judgment Day time period. Congratulations on maintaining continuity, even though it shows the year in Salvation at the beginning with being 2003 when it went down. So
Yeah.
it's just, and they did a couple nice touches in there. Like at one point, Christian Bale's listening to a recording of Linda Hamilton. And like the tapes she made from before he was born and all that.
yeah,
The first four, that's the thing, right? You draw your lines in certain places. 1 and 2 are the real story, and I'll say the first four, at least they tried to maintain a continuity. After that, I'm checked out.
yeah. Because then you get into Genesis, and Sarah Connor's in it, and then some random fucking dude that's tagging along with her. Again, who is this dude? Why do we care he's here? He's not John Connor. It's not Kyle Reese. Who the fuck? Why?
Yeah, that
Why?
well, that
And
just
then,
there's a Terminator, there's a T-1000 in there in Terminator 1 time period as well. Like it's just chaos.
yeah,
We don't talk
and
about
then,
that movie.
and then Dark Fate again. It's like, okay, we have Sarah Connor, but no John Connor, and just a bunch of other fucking random characters who don't actually impact the story or timeline. And I think Terminator 3 was the last movie to really like have the characters that mattered to the story carry the movie.
Yeah, and well, I mean, like I would slight give Salvation a little bit of that, but I hear what you're saying. But there's the latest future Terminator sequel news is that Jimmy C was saying, you know what, it's about time we hit a hard reset on this and sort of drop the T800 aesthetic. Bold statement, Jimmy C. So he did an interview like a couple months ago where he said, I think the future of this franchise is sort of a reimagining where the AI component's a little more relevant. And I mean, at this point, I don't think it's a bad thing to sort of try and start from square one and maybe spin a core narrative that's a little bit different, just because they've shown that they all they know how to do is spin a wheel with this franchise at this point. And I'm interested if he's going to be, and I mean, he's always claimed to be mildly involved with the sequels. Like apparently it was his idea to have old Arnold because a Terminator was lingering on Earth like for 30 years, and that's why he looks old. Like he chimes in here and there, but if he sort of brought the core narrative from himself, I'd be interested to see a reboot of this. And that's words you'll never hear me say about almost any other franchise, but I think it's time with this one.
Yeah, I would agree.
I would also like, because I don't, especially because they kind of wrote themselves into a corner with Arnold being the specimen in which the T800s are based on, right? Like that the Terminators are always going to look like that.
Oh
Right.
yeah. Well, but I mean, CGI de-aging is bigger than it has ever been now.
True.
But I totally forgot one of the funniest things about Terminator 3 that do you guys remember Sergeant Candy? Do you know what that is?
With the doesn't he have like a thick ass accent?
Yeah, but this is a deleted scene from Terminator 3 where we get to see I think his name's Sergeant William Candy, who is basically Arnold with a Southern American accent,
Yeah.
who is a military sergeant who is the template for the T-800, and it shows him like in a lab, like looking at the T-800 parts, and he's dubbed over by like this hilarious voice,
Yeah.
and you can find this deleted scene on YouTube, but it's sort of like it
Is
shows.
T3? I thought that was Salvation.
No, this is T3.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, because Arnold is basically not in Salvation. There's a CGI Arnold at the end. That's
You're
it.
right.
Right. They show him coming off the assembly line.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was going to be my thing. Is like they kind of pigeonholed themselves into Terminators will always look like this because they're based off this guy. So if you just keep the franchise in the future war, where they wouldn't need to put the flesh on the Terminator skeletons, it'd be fine. And Salvation was a good enough movie. I think you could do a sequel to that. Christian Bale's still pretty. I mean, he doesn't look that much different than he did when that movie came out.
That would be that's such a good idea. It'll never happen, Dean. You know what? Remember those last two movies we did? Never mind those. We're going to go back and make a sequel to Terminator 4.
Yeah, just keep it in the future war. Like,
yeah.
Come on.
But there's precedent for that. I mean, I'm not going to say it was done well, but Superman Returns, right?
Yeah.
That's true.
Ignored 3 and 4 and was a direct sequel off of 2. Again, however you feel about Superman Returns is notwithstanding, but
Yeah.
But
sadly, I was going to say, sadly, the guy who played Kyle Reese, Anton Yelchin, died quite a number of years ago in Salvation.
Yeah.
So, they'd have to recast him. But, yeah.
He did.
Yeah.
That's right. I forgot that's who played Kyle Reese. I think, what was I going to say? I don't know how much else you could do in the past. Terminator comes back, gets saved by another Terminator. The T-1000 comes back, John gets saved by Terminator. Then the T3 is basically a rehash of T2, right? They send a super advanced being, still fails against the T-800. Then in Genesis, it was like, oh, well, Kyle or John Connor's actually the bad guy in this movie. And the Terminator's been hanging around for 30 years, so he looks old. And then whatever the fuck was going on in Dark Fate. So it's like, you've done that, it's played out. The going back to the past to kill John is played out. You've done it 4 fucking times already. 5, actually.
Yeah.
Right, the first movie, kill Sarah, so John's never even born. So, like, 5 times you've gone back in the past. Just keep it in the future war. Stop going back into the past.
Yeah, and if those future war scenes in the first 2 movies are gnarly. Some of the best stuff in the movies.
So good, dude. Yeah. The vibe, the music, dude, so good.
Yep, and that's why there's like Terminator 2 Arcade is so sweet. It's just like future war.
So good.
You're just shooting at robots flying around the whole time. But let's talk real quick about a couple collectibles here. Earlier, Dean mentioned the McFarlane figures. Here's the glorious coffin Arnold. And it's a pretty small line, but
I never got the regular T850 where he's just standing there, but I had the coffin one. So cool.
Same here. That's the only one I had too.
I have that coffin somewhere.
Really?
But I still have all the guns and stuff. In fact,
I don't remember noticing that it's 850 rather than 800. Like, what's the upgrade? Yeah. I don't know. Interesting. The only
thing different was he had like that little mini nuclear bomb or whatever in his chest.
Yeah. The little power cell, which, by the way, is also referenced in Terminator Salvation. They cared, guys. They maintained continuity. John Connor rips 3 or 4 of those off an assembly line and rigs them up to explode in Salvation. They're just attention to detail that you just don't get anymore. And the other thing I think about when I think about Terminator 3 is that this is one of the very last movies to get a VHS release in America.
Wow.
So, you know,
That's crazy.
yeah, this is, you know, you don't see much past 2003. And I remember I was on a road trip through, I think Pennsylvania it was, and me and my friends went in a sketchy old gas station convenience store that had a wire metal shelf of VHSs. And it was all just like 2001 to 3, like the last ones off the boat before the
That's
VHS
amazing.
foundries were melted down. And you know, it's like it's funny, like for the Star Wars prequels, like you get episode 1 and 2 on VHS, but by the time 3 comes around, that I think there's like a German release of 3 on VHS or something. Like it was done in America by 2005. So yeah, it's just fun to see. This is a common sight if you see a stack of VHSs in a thrift shop or something, because it was the one of the last ones done. But commonly available sealed. But yeah, there's probably some statues that I'm not remembering, or like third party 1/6 scale figures. I there must be something, but it's outside of my knowledge and purview. But if you guys know about any of that, I would love to hear about it in the comments, even after we're done with the show here. But yeah, let's give a shout out to our Patreon supporters. We got Captain Fordo, Ian CB, Renee Mendez, Eric Mariscal, Quinn Aguirre, King Louis, Mark Pearson, Paul Schreiber, Equan, Chris Valencerina, Ben Thomas, David Jones, Sam Gist, Joao Breda, Thomas Clark, Eric Schweitzer, Six Guns Figs, Badfish, Joe Corpus, Luke Skywalker, Dan Lee, Deanie Martin, Big Fern, Caesar American, Mark Phillips, Lisa Martin Bomansky, Rick De Gregorio, Ricardo Valdez, Jose CZ, Alad Morgan, Tukathri Wah, Derek B, Arias Portillo, Alvin J, Mario Delgado, Aurelius Delgado, Toy Cartel, Sith Scale Collector, thanks for joining us today, Mike, Jared Gagne, Alberto Cortez, Big Rib, Trevor Weed, and Matt Clevenger, Dom Matan, Stephen Percha, Sean Yautsy, Scott Bradley, Stephen Maria Stanley, Eddie Manzanares, Louis Bennett, Chip Perrin, Exodus, Abe Dunk TV, and GG the Judgmental. Thanks very much for supporting us, guys. And if you want to join Patreon, you got the hot seat for the digital benefits. That gives you access to all the archived episodes of After Dark, which is live every Wednesday night, but it doesn't stay up there on YouTube. So if you want to watch those after the fact, you got to sign up for that. And then if you sign up for the Sweet Angel, you get stickers sent directly to your door once every 2 months, I think it is. And if you get those stickers, you get awesome stuff like this, where the December sticker, you got Merry Oxmas, which is a Santa with a Shure 55 microphone. Everybody loves that. And go ahead, Dean. You got something to say there?
I was gonna say, is it Santa or is it Zach as Santa?
Well, I mean, the only data we have to go by, all we got is I guess, but Santa sometimes has glasses, but they're little round ones. That's true. So I don't know.
True.
But
I thought it was
other
Mario.
than that, well, yeah, I mean, it kind of looks like how Classy Thomas looked the other day too. So I don't know. But all we got there is 2 dots for eyes to go on, basically. So I don't know. But yeah, I guess it's Zach, because Zach is both stickers right now. I guess he's also a duck man, and I don't know. I have no idea what the deal with the duck thing is. Dean, can you give me a high level explanation of what the duck costume is about? Because I don't get it.
Yeah, so Zach's, I guess it's his favorite animal is a duck. And we got really into NCAA football over the past year. And his team was the Oregon Ducks. And so he bought a costume of their mascot. And that's Zach in the costume. And
Right. Given the Jumbo there
yeah,
on
Manny
the cereal
just
box.
decided to make a little cereal thing. It's hilarious.
Yeah. Well, and it's got, look, you got the Quaker Oats guy in the corner there. Maybe
That's
is
me.
there? You got your face on the Oats guy.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's a pretty good sticker. I recommend you sign up immediately. You might already be too late to get it. Hopefully you're not. You'll have to go look for it on eBay if you missed that. But yeah, here's our YouTube channel members. We got Absolute Irwin, Alvin J, Andrew Gibo, Benjamin Hansen, Big Ol' Fern, Bob Dylan, CC3PO, Chris V, CT603, DJ Daminator, Doc Smizzle, Equan, Fat Batman, Gare Bear, Good Old Spotchka, Gotham Cenobites, Justin Sports Card, LV Avenger 702, Mark Pearson, Mike Litteris, Money Mendez. I think it's funnier if you say Mike Litteris as if you don't notice what the joke is. That's what he wants you to do. Money Mendez, OG Fan, OMFG Rick, 1/6 Figure Focus, Paul Schreiber, Philip the Fool, S Beam, Sam Gist, Scarnlord, SpongeBob SquareBalls, Sunnyvale Russ, The Ben Thomas Show, Toy Mafia, and Exodus. Thanks very much for supporting us, guys, and we really appreciate you taking a look at the network here. There's one missing because we have heard that Only Fools and Collecting is coming back on the 12th, and maybe they're going to be monthly from now on. Dean, do you got a little more detail on that?
Yeah, I think it's once a month.
Okay. So yeah, we'll figure out what we do. Maybe at movie night we'll alternate with them. We'll figure all that out in the new year. But the main thing is that they're gonna have a new episode on the 12th, and you're watching CW Movie Night and Collecting Weekly Live. The main show is live every Tuesday night, and then you have Small Talk alternating Thursdays with us right now, and After Dark live every Wednesday night, and Just Another Friday Night live every Friday night, and they're covering I think they're still sticking to a lot of modern TV shows, doing recaps for a string of episodes, that sort of thing, and they always have a good time, and it's a really chill stream. I recommend you check it out. But yeah, do you guys want to add anything you guys been up to lately that you want to direct people to? They already seen all your stuff if they're on this channel, I guess, Dean. But
yeah,
yeah.
I'll be on Will Fox Vacations show tomorrow. It's 4:15 Central Standard Time.
Cool.
I don't know about anything else for now.
All right, Mike. What CW shows have you been on lately?
Any of the ones that they'll have me. So yeah, just happy to be around and help everybody out when needed.
Yeah, you know what? I'm sure Classy Thomas is watching, and he appreciates us keeping the show going, and we'll figure out how that sort of shakes out. But I feel like it's, while it's fun, we should keep doing it. And maybe it's about time Mike had a pick for a movie if he's gonna keep showing up every Thursday. So maybe we'll work on that. Right now, I don't know what we're doing next time, but I really appreciate everybody hanging out and listen to us talk about the joyous moment in culture that was Terminator 3: Rise of the Machines. So
what a time to be alive.
Yeah, well, it was a great time to be alive. Now we're in a worse time, but that's how it is. And all right, everybody, have a good night and watch Terminator 3. And we'll try and cover something that Mike actually enjoys a little bit more next time. See ya.